Last week, I went 10-6 for predictions. Now maybe the Packers could go 10-6. Grossi Posse Packer Nation. Welcome to an episode of Packcast, the podcast where you don't have to be Packers fan, but it sure does help. I'm your host, Tom. We're getting closer to the postseason, Grossi, and today we are going to be breaking down and predicting each game in Week 13 of the NFL. We got some great matchups, including a highly anticipated rematch of the NFC Championship between the 49ers and the Eagles. But first, let's go back to last week. I went 10-6, bringing my total to 111-70 on the year. And we have a new number one ranked person in the Pick'em League, and that is Josh with a record of 128-52. So congratulations to Josh. I know it's super late, but if you want to join the Pick'em League, you can. Link is in the description. Totally free. Keep on going, Josh. So starting off with the Thursday night game, you got the Seattle Seahawks taking on the Dallas Cowboys. Both these teams playing on Thanksgiving, though I think both these teams have very different feelings about the holiday. And Seahawks fans, listen, I know that you hate Thanksgiving right now, so I got a video I can recommend to you.
Things I hate about Thanksgiving. So without any further hesitation, I present to you my list.
And it just so happens it's from a Cowboys fan. The Seahawks getting absolutely obliterated by the 49ers on Thanksgiving, and they were just overmatched. The defense was doing the best that it could to contain Brock Purdy, CMC, and that entire 49ers offense, and they did an adequate job. But the Seahawks offense could not do a thing. Geno Smith didn't look good, they had no run game established, and it was just a rough night. And unfortunately for the Seahawks, their schedule is not getting any easier these next few weeks. They're taking on the Cowboys, who had their way with the Commanders. It was a close game for at least a little bit, but Dak Prescott's starting to get involved in that MVP conversation. He's been playing really well. CeeDee Lamb, of course, just having a phenomenal season, and that defense, really a strong point of that team. And I mentioned this on Power Rankings. If they can get Tony Pollard even more involved and he can get going late into December, they're going to be a very good football team. So taking a look at this Thursday, of course, the Cowboys have been hearing it all season that they're not a real team. They're only beating up on teams with losing records. Well, here they go. They got the Seahawks now, and the Seahawks with a couple of teams moving their way up the standings, they need to get this win. And the Cowboys, they want to continue to have a shot at the NFC East title. I am going to go with the Cowboys here being played in Dallas. I think the Cowboys are just going to have too much of an advantage here. I'm very scared of what's going to happen to that Seahawks offense because that Cowboys defense has been looking ferocious. So I'm going to go with Dallas here. And Seahawks, I'm sorry. You must be sacrificed for the Packers to make the postseason. Then you got an AFC South matchup between the Indianapolis Colts and the Tennessee Titans. Both these teams coming away with a win last week. The Colts, they find themselves on a 3-game winning streak. Unfortunately, Jonathan Taylor is dealing with an injury to his finger. He's going to be missing at least 2 to 3 games, which is very unfortunate because it seemed like he was just starting to find his groove. And the Colts are a weird team. Gardner Minshew right now is leading that team to salvation. Of course, it's kind of like a what-if season if Anthony Richardson had stayed healthy. And it was an impressive win by the Colts against a Buccaneers team who has been really solid this year. And look at the Colts. I mean, they're in the playoff race right now in a tough AFC. They're taking on the Tennessee Titans, who had a win against the Panthers last week. And Panthers fans reminding the Titans that it can always be worse.
You should be grateful.
Because the Titans, they have not had a great season, but it's going to be a matter of evaluating the talent that they have. Can Will Levis be the guy going forward? We've had a really small sample size, and he's had those flashes, but considering the expectations for that team after they got DeAndre Hopkins, I can see why it is a bit disappointing. This could be a really fun game here, and for the Colts, like I said before, they are vying for a playoff spot. I am going to pick the Colts to get the win, and then maybe with 4 in a row, the media will start talking about them a little bit more. But for right now, Indianapolis, they get the win. And Titans, sorry. Following that, you got a tale of 2 disappointing teams. You got the LA Chargers taking on the New England Patriots. Both these teams coming off a loss. The Chargers, oh God, when their fans try to describe their season, I am so sorry. And Deuce Staley got fired by the Panthers, and I know Chargers fans were really excited for a hot second because they heard that Staley got fired, and they're just waiting for the moment that Brandon Staley will be gone. Or exorcised if you believe in demons. They're going to be taking on the New England Patriots, who had a game with the New Jersey Giants. Of course, a missed field goal at the end did not send it into overtime. Thank you, Patriots. And listen, both these teams incredibly disappointing this year, more so for the Chargers because they got their ass kicked by the Ravens on Sunday Night Football. Their offense couldn't do anything. And it's honestly just sad because I like Justin Herbert a lot. I think they have a bunch of weapons on that team, but they're just not living up to their potential. And the Patriots, yeah, this is the worst that I have seen them in a very, very long time. I'm going to go with the Chargers to get a win here. Both these teams desperately need a win, but maybe not the Patriots because they might be tanking for Caleb Williams. But yeah, Chargers, you get the win, and Brandon Staley will probably stay on your team at least another week. Following that, you got the Detroit Lions taking on the New Orleans Saints. Both these teams, a disappointing loss against division rivals. Lions fans.
The moon! No! Now, Stone Soldier, destroy the moon!
Did I just reference Yu-Gi-Oh! In my predictions video? Damn right I did. Believe in the heart of the cards. They're going to be taking on the New Orleans Saints, who lost to the Falcons, and now the Falcons, they're leading the NFC South. Both these teams having a rough Week 12, and again, for the Lions, I think they're going to be just fine. They have some games that are going to be problematic. They have to play the Vikings twice, though if the same Vikings that showed up against the Bears show up, it's going to be fine. But their real tough tests are going to come against the Broncos and eventually the Cowboys. Now with a surging Packers, who knows? The Packers are taking on the Chiefs this week, but the Lions still have a very good football team. I think they're well coached. I know that the defense is not so great, and that offensive line really didn't do well against the Packers pass rush, but I still have faith in the Lions. They're taking on the Saints, who, man, they got to just be disappointed. Their offense is just horrible again. We had a bright spot for a couple weeks that they looked like maybe they were going to get something going, and Pete Carmichael, it's just ugly over there. This could actually wind up being a pretty competitive game. The Saints have a good defense, and maybe they'll be able to get after Jared Goff. I am going to pick the Lions to have a bounce-back win. They definitely need it. It'll give them a little bit more of a cushion, especially if the Packers wind up losing on Sunday. So Lions, they get the W. But Saints, I wouldn't mind if you won. Following that, you got the Atlanta Falcons taking on the New Jersey Jets. The Falcons! You're in first place in the NFC South.
Down here, I make the rules. Down here, I make the threats. Down here, I'm God.
Cue Bart dancing. The Falcons have basically come out of nowhere because they've hated Arthur Smith basically this entire season, not using Bijan, and all of a sudden, looks like that offense is starting to come alive a little bit, and maybe some optimism. And what I find really interesting about the NFC South is its potential that all of their head coaches get fired at the end of the year, because it seems like every fan base is not happy with their head coach. They're going to be taking on the New Jersey Jets, who put up a big ol' stinker on Black Friday, losing to the Dolphins. Tim Boyle throwing a pick-6 Hail Mary at the end of the first half. And Jets fans, maybe things would have been different if the Jets picked up a QB after week 1.
Look, gang, a door.
I wonder where it leads.
We'll never know.
Yeah, we'll never know what was behind that door. And listen, I feel for Jets fans. The season tickets, they were flying, and now it's just sad times over there. This should be a relatively competitive game. Again, the Jets defense is going to keep them in it. And if the Jets want any hope of Aaron Rodgers returning this season, they need to start winning football games. Tim Boyle is going to be the starter again. I don't know how he's going to fare against the Atlanta Falcons defense because he didn't fare really well against the Miami defense. I am going to go with the Falcons here to get the win. I think they're a little bit more of a complete team, though I wouldn't be surprised if the Jets defense shuts down Desmond Ridder. But yeah, going with the Falcons, and sorry again, Jets fans. Then you got the Arizona Cardinals taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Cardinals, yeah, they got their ass kicked. Their first drive was really nice against the Rams, and then the rest of it did not go well. They need a lot of help, and listen, we already predicted that they were going to be one of the worst, if not the worst team in the league. They weren't, and so they can kind of hang their hat on that, but they have a lot of gaps that they need to fill. They're going to be taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers with, oh, look at that. You fire Matt Canada. Kenny Pickett balls out and may have saved his job.
I saved a life. My own. Am I a hero? I really can't say, but yes.
And you got over 400 yards on offense. Congrats, you son of a gun. And now, the Steelers, here's the thing. Defeating the Cincinnati Bengals, of course, the Joe Burrow-less Cincinnati Bengals. But here's the thing. For me, I have not picked a Steelers game correctly this season. That's right. I am 0-11 for Steelers games. Every time I pick them to win, they lose. Every single time I pick them to lose, they win. Can I break the streak this week? I am gonna pick the Pittsburgh Steelers to get the W. And if the Cardinals win, I will fully admit that I am cursing Pittsburgh, and I am so sorry. So Steelers, you get the win. I just think they're a better football team. The defense, I think, is going to be able to contain Kyler Murray. And that offense, hey, maybe they're going to have back-to-back 400-yard games. You never know. Then you got the Miami Dolphins taking on the Washington Commanders. The Dolphins getting a big win on Black Friday. Of course, we talked about that before, over the Jets. And the Dolphins defense has been looking real good these past few weeks. Their offense, of course, is still very, very good, but they went up against a challenging Jets D. And I think when they get Achane back, I can't wait to see how that offense is going to thrive. They're taking on the Commanders, and Jack Del Rio got fired after they got blown out on Thanksgiving, and if it happens again, Sam Howell might be walking into the locker room with a new head coach.
You're not Ron.
And I like Sam Howell a lot, and I like Ron Rivera as well. I just think that Ron Rivera's time in Washington is up. I think you could have made a really strong argument last season to let him go, but I think the Commanders have a lot of respect for him, and I imagine Ron Rivera is going to finish out the season. The Commanders, again, it's all about evaluation right now. I believe Sam Howell can definitely be their guy. They're going up against a very good Dolphins football team. I do have Miami getting the win, though I do think it might be a bit competitive. But yeah, Dolphins win, Commanders just got to get through the rest of the season. Following that, you got the Denver Broncos taking on the Houston Texans, or Strouds, depending on who you talk to. The Broncos with a big win over the Cleveland Browns last week, and look at that. The Denver Broncos, 5 in a row. And where did that winning streak start? Against the Packers. You're welcome, Denver. But seriously, I am really impressed with the Broncos. Do I think they're the best team out there? Absolutely not. But I think they're a solid team. And for them to bounce back, especially that defense, after getting 70 points scored on them by the Dolphins, that's an amazing turnaround, and their entire staff deserves credit for that. On top of that, their offense, they've been running the ball more effectively, and their offense actually looks like it has some life. Meanwhile, the Texans, unfortunately losing a close game against the Jaguars, whether it's penalties that went against them or, of course, Amendola hitting it off the crossbar. The Texans, they just couldn't catch a break. And even more egregiously, the schedule makers still won't flex CJ Stroud into primetime.
The boy is dangerous. They all sense it. Why can't you?
His fate is uncertain.
You know the world wants to see it. This is going to be a phenomenal game, in my opinion, and the implications are enormous. Both these teams are looking to get into the playoffs. Both these teams are on the cusp, and whoever wins this could very well wind up taking a playoff spot over the other team. So I imagine this is going to be a highly competitive game. I'm actually going to go with the Denver Broncos here. I love the way that CJ Stroud is playing 1,000,000%, but I think that defense is going to be able to cause some problems for CJ. And on top of that, I think the Broncos should be able to run the ball against the Texans defense, though it has been pretty good in these past few weeks. So yeah, Broncos get the win, but if you do wind up knocking Brandon Perna off his pedestal, I mean, I'll take it. Maybe the power rankings will be normal then. Then you got an NFC South battle between the Carolina Panthers and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Panthers, of course, firing Frank Reich, their head coach, after hiring him this offseason, and it's just a mess in Carolina. You had David Tepper going out during a press conference and saying, yeah, there was some discussion about taking CJ Stroud because they thought that Bryce Young wasn't going to be there, but they still believe in Bryce Young. The moral of the story is this is a complete and total mess, and David Tepper in that team meeting after Frank Reich got fired.
Maybe I'm fooling myself again. Well, why don't you go and find out yourself? Send me a postcard. Go on, there's the door. You can do better. Let's see how far you get. No takers? Fine. But get one thing straight. You're staying. This isn't a democracy anymore.
Can only imagine how that went. They're going to be taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who, as we talked about before, suffered a tough loss against the Colts, and they battled back, and I got to give some credit to Baker Mayfield. And the Buccaneers, again, they are just a solid football team. I still think they are going to be competitive and be in line to potentially win the division this year. And right now, that's going to start against the Carolina Panthers. They need to win these divisional games. Maybe it'll be a little bit closer with Frank Reich gone, though I don't know how much better Carolina is actually going to be. But I am going to go with Tampa to get the W here, and they get one step closer to potentially making the playoffs. Following that, you got the Cleveland Browns taking on the LA Rams. The Browns, unfortunately, losing to the Denver Broncos last week. DTR getting banged up. Myles Garrett getting banged up, but thankfully, he's only day-to-day. For Browns fans, I don't even know what to tell you anymore, because at this point, everybody is just getting injured. You've lost so many players this season, and yeah, I'm just sorry. I still do believe in the Browns defense, but again, their offense is such a liability right now. I wouldn't be surprised if Joe Flacco gets called up one of these days to get in there. He's on the practice squad right now. They're taking on the LA Rams, and Kyron Williams, he was back from IR, and he ran all over the Cardinals.
I am fast. I'm very fast.
And the Rams are one of those like sneaky good teams in the NFC, and they very well could wind up making the playoffs. Their offense is really good with Matthew Stafford back. They have a running game in Kyron Williams, and of course, they have all those amazing receivers. Now, I think this will be a really good test for the Rams going up against that defense. We'll see if Myles Garrett winds up playing, but I am going to give the Rams the win. It should be a pretty close game, but yeah, I believe in Matthew Stafford a bit right now, and again, I just don't believe in that Browns offense, so because of that, Rams get the win. And then, finally, you got the NFC Championship rematch we've all been waiting for. Hopefully with both QBs staying healthy. You got the San Francisco 49ers taking on the Philadelphia Eagles. Both teams with a big win last week. The 49ers, as we talked about before, decimating the Seattle Seahawks. Didn't really allow them to do anything. And the Eagles getting away with the win against the Buffalo Bills in what many are calling the game of the year. And yeah, they had some ref help, 1,000,000%. But you also got to give it up for Jalen Hurts, who made those adjustments in the second half and really played well. And Nick Sirianni, he's been all over the media, whether it's trash talking, but I imagine this is what he's going to say to Brock Purdy on Sunday.
You know what? I'm about to say it. Say it. I don't care that you broke your elbow.
But this is going to be a phenomenal game, and one I legitimately cannot wait for. It's what we should have gotten in the NFC Championship game, but unfortunately Brock Purdy got injured. Both teams seem relatively healthy, so let's frickin' frack and go. The 49ers, I think they have a slight edge here, but it's being played in Philadelphia, which is going to give the Eagles a decent advantage here. This game could go either way, and all I know is I can't wait to watch it. I am going to give the 49ers a slight edge because, one, they're going to want all the revenge here. And on top of that, I think they'll be able to get after Jalen Hurts just like the Chiefs were doing and like the Bills were doing for at least a little bit in that game. So I am going to go with the 49ers, and I know Eagles fans are going to be like, oh, we're underdogs, but you know that you love it. So 49ers, I have them getting the win, but maybe, just maybe, those Eagles are going to fly again. Then on Sunday Night Football, you got the Kansas City Chiefs taking on the Green Bay mother-loving Packers. Both these teams having big divisional wins last week. Of course, the Packers going into Detroit and taking care of the Detroit Lions, and Jordan Love looking phenomenal. These past few weeks, he's been looking really, really good. There's been a lot of progress, and on top of that, for the Packers, it seems like some guys are returning from injury, which will be a big boost. Meanwhile, the Chiefs went down 14-0 against the Raiders and were able to bounce back, and now they have their sights set on the Packers. Last time that these two teams played, Jordan Love had his first start, and it wound up being a pretty close game. This, I hope, is a close game being played at Lambeau. Might have some rain, wintry mix on Sunday night, and I just pray that the Packers are competitive because they are going up against a very good defense. We saw how good the Chiefs' defense can be, and it's going to be a challenge for that offensive line to give Jordan Love time. I, of course, am going to go with the Green Bay mother-loving Packers, even though the chips are stacked against us. But listen, I picked them to beat the Lions, and that came true. And you might say, Tom, you always pick the Packers to win literally every single time. And I would say, I know. And what's different this time?
Absolutely nothing.
But I got to go with my team. Packers get the win, stun the world, and they go on a win streak to make it to the postseason. But yeah, there is a decent chance the Chiefs kick our ass, but Packers win. And then finally on Monday Night Football, you got a cat attack. You got the Cincinnati Bengals taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars. And now we have a live look at Bengals fans without Joe Burrow. Yeah, I'm so sorry, Bengals fans. Just kitty goes ow. Losing to the Pittsburgh Steelers last week, and Browning is like okay, but it's going to be a tough rest of the season, especially the Bengals are starting to claw their way back. They had the playoffs in their sights, and now it's just waiting out the rest of the season. They're taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars. As we spoke about, they had a big win over the Houston Texans. And yeah, they got away with some things there. But the Jaguars, their defense has been really, really good this year. And their offense, it has those flurries. Calvin Ridley, get him even more involved because you see what kind of damage he can do. Travis Etienne, I really like him as well. And Trevor Lawrence, while he's had an up and down season, we're just waiting for that offense to really get to that next level. They need to beat the Bengals here because they need to make sure they stay ahead of the Texans within the division. I do have the Jaguars getting the win against a banged up Bengals team. And because of that, the Glitter Kitty will be the one that's going meow this week. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. That's who I got winning these games. Who do you got? And let's just have a great week of football. You guys find me at Tom Grossi Comedy at all social media. See down below. A big shout out and thank you to all the patrons and YouTube members for supporting this channel. And thank you so much for watching. I'm Tom Grossi. And as always, go Pack Go.